welcome to a special homecoming edition of Blue Raider Extra Point. I'm Noah Brady, joined alongside Adam Brown and Dylan Simmons here in the heart of campus of Middle Tennessee State University, the Blue Raider Hall of Fame. Excited to bring you Week 7 coverage from around Conference USA. Speaking of which, we'll start off with Adam Brown. Adam, take us around the CUSA.
Well, Noah, this week we've got 3 birds of prey and 1 bulldog when we visit North Texas versus La Tech and the Owl versus Owl matchup of FAU and Rice. Let's take a look.
Happy homecoming, Raiders! As we get set to watch MTSU take on our arch rival WKU for homecoming today, let's take a quick look around the rest of the conference. The Rice Owls are traveling to Boca Raton to take on the FAU Owls, and only 1 bird of prey can come out on top. FAU is a 4-point favorite at home and has shown themselves to be a better team than their record says, with some games that just didn't go their way in the final score department. With 1 conference loss already this season, FAU needs this one to keep pace. Rice, on the other hand, was slept on after a tough opening run of a schedule, but has since built up to a 3-2 record. Rice is 1-0 in conference and will be looking to build on that today. For our second game, we're going to the Lone Star State as North Texas hosts Louisiana Tech. The Bulldogs, similar to Rice, had a really tough start to the schedule and are now trying to build themselves up and prove people wrong as they have an opportunity to get to 500 this week after a high-scoring performance against UTEP. The Mean Green, who are a 6.5-point favorite at home, are a known factor in Conference USA as they are now 2-0 in conference play with an offense that can score in a hurry. Even with a much harder schedule for La Tech, they are almost identical to North Texas statistically. Look for the cover here from the Bulldogs if their defense can keep them in it.
We're going to get to see which team is the true Owls in the Conference USA this week.
Yeah, and I got to ask, who of these 2 quarterbacks, we got TJ McMahon and N'Kosi Perry, is going to come out on top? I think that's going to be the big deciding factor in this game.
Well, guys, before we find out the who's who, we got to take a look at the rest of the matchups coming up around the CUSA. There's more where that came from. We'll be back with more on Blue Raider Extra Point.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm gonna miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Or maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it all, if I could go back, I would. But I can't.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Welcome back to Blue Raider Extra Point here on True Blue TV. Let's see what Dylan Simmons has up his sleeve this week on the Big Blue Review.
Well, guys, we're going to be checking out Rowdy Raider hockey as they just took on Vanderbilt in their last series, and we're also going to be checking out the path of destruction being left by the MTSU softball team. Let's take a look. The Rowdy Raiders rattled off their first home series in nearly a month over the past weekend. MTSU squared off against the Vanderbilt Commodores, of which the two have had a budding rivalry that puts even the likes of crabs versus plankton to shame. The Blue Raiders would host the Commodores on Friday night and had first period success, but were stunned by 4 unanswered Vandy goals to lose the game 4-3. MT would not be shaken, however, as they would then rebound on Sunday. The Raiders played like Neo in the Matrix as they garnered a sensational 7-3 victory. The Icebender Lyndon Palmer and Clay Stalzer were particularly dominant. Next up, Rowdy Raiders meet Hotty Toddy as MTSU host Ole Miss in another home series, starting on October 21st, which you can catch right here on MTN Sports. Blue Raiders softball is back with a vengeance this autumn. The team is undefeated thus far and added to their win total this past weekend against 2 more foes. MTSU first squared off against Columbia State Community College on Saturday and jumped out to a lead as quickly as shoppers entering Target on Black Friday. they would win easily by a score of 16-1. Their following game against Snead State Community College would also prove as easy as a slow ride, as they would win by a score of 12-1. Ashley Jackaway and Abby Shoulders were among the standout stars over the weekend, and the outfield caught as many balls as Ash Ketchum catches Pokemon. Softball looks to finish strong against Cleveland State Community College in their final fall matchup tomorrow at 2.
Good to see the Raiders pick up a victory. Next up for them, it's going to be Hotty Toddy and Ole Miss. And I got to say, MTSU softball looking as destructive as Galactus.
Yeah, that hockey win was huge, and what a great response by them after a late, kind of tough loss, and then they turn around and just smack Vanderbilt. That's turned into a good rivalry.
Absolutely is.
Shifting gears, we've got the Spotlight coming up next for you, where we're going to detail all the twists and turns of the 100 Miles of Hate rivalry. Let's take a look.
Roads are the modern-day way we connect with the greater world, put in place to give us a way to journey to new horizons. I-24, the northbound highway in Tennessee, along with I-65, is no exception. However, once a year, these roads become a passageway to connect two warring factions. Middle Tennessee State and Western Kentucky strive to have control over their domain. That much is settled with the winner of a journey that takes 100 miles of hate to travel. To go the 100-mile distance, you must start over 100 years ago, 1914, the first year these bitter rivals clashed, which would lead to a severe roadblock for the Hilltoppers, as they lost 47-0 to the Blue Raiders, to date their largest margin of victory in the series. Not to be outdone, Western Kentucky would attain their own lopsided win in 1978, 54-0, the largest win in the entire series. Speaking of points, in 2009, MTSU sent Western Kentucky into a road-blocked lane, piling up 62 points, the most ever scored in the game. Perhaps you are not as big of a fan of John Wayne Western-style shootouts. Let's take it down a few miles per hour, with Middle's number 7, Zaylen Wood, who terrorizes opposing offenses this season, forcing turnovers and pick sixes left and right. WKU is no slouch on defense either, forcing teams to stop on offense as they are second in the nation in forced turnovers. Looking around the bend this season, these two teams share another commonality, both standing at a 3-3 record. Both teams have multiple lanes to travel this year and hope this game is the one way to victory. If there's one player that drives the Blue Raiders down the field, it's number 83, Jalen Express Lane. This guy can accelerate in both left and right lanes and has an incredible 93 yards receiving per game this season. Complementing him is a man who has the force of a semi, trucking down the interstate. Frank the Tank Peason. Peason is averaging a powerfully earned 57 yards per game this season. Crossing paths throughout the history of hate, these teams faced one another 71 times. That kind of legacy makes the game mean as much as any car game on a road trip. Halfway into this trip, it's easily seen. This rivalry is like a game that goes around in circles repeatedly. Both MTSU and WKU stand at a record of 35, 35, and 1 against each other. So this year's game will determine who's in the passing lane for the rivalry. Snapping a streak can sometimes be as difficult as weaving through rush hour traffic, something the Blue Raiders know all too well. For 10 straight games in the 1920s and early 30s, MTSU did not win a single game. Despite wrong turns, both teams always come into this game holding the belief that the other will be no match for their might. 100 miles might mark the physical end of this trip, but the journey will always continue.
35, 35, and 1. Cannot wait to see who gets that 36 win later today.
Gotta say, Adam, there's nothing quite like the 100 Miles of Hate. Can't wait for this showdown. When we come back, we'll have more on it with the scoop and the scouting report. Stay tuned here on Blue Raider Extra Point.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the Blue Raider Hall of Fame. Let's see what Grant Langston has in store for us this week on The Scoop.
Joining me on The Scoop this week, we have Jimmy Purdue from Western Kentucky. All right, Jimmy, tell me a little bit about this Western team. I know that they lost, obviously, Bailey Zapp, who we've seen perform very well in the NFL, and their top pass rusher in D'Angelo Malone. So who have been some of those standout performers for the Hilltoppers thus far this season?
Right now, Austin, which is our quarterback right now, he came in from a D2, D3 school. I can't remember exactly which one. He's been a huge standout. Number 7, I'm trying to remember his name. He's a wide receiver. I think it's Dawood Davis. Right now, he's a senior. He's been a heck of a player this season. Also, I believe his name is Malachi Corley. Malachi Corley, if he gets out there on the open field, you can almost guarantee a touchdown. But I think sometimes we really lack that electric that we had on defense. Previously, when I worked for the football team, D'Angelo Malone was there. He was just a great player to watch. When you watch a player like that, you just knew he was going to the league. And I feel like sometimes maybe we lack that on the defensive side of the ball, but I feel like, come together more as a team, we could probably execute more of a defensive strategy there.
So you said you've worked for the football team before. What does this 100 Miles of Hate rivalry mean to the Western program?
The 100 Miles of Hate. Out of our 2 rivalries, we have the 100 Miles of Hate and basically it's the Battle of the Moonshine, which is with Marshall. But unfortunately, just losing Marshall to the Sun Belt was a really big loss to our actual schedule. So I feel like that really strengthens the rivalry between the 100 Miles of Hate with MTSU.
Well, thanks for all that, Jimmy. Back to you guys.
Great work there from Grant this week on The Scoop. Adam, what's up next?
Well, no, we sent Ryan Martinovich behind enemy lines, and he's got our scouting report for this week. So let's take a look.
Though both teams limp into this rivalry match on 2-game losing streaks, someone is bound to break away. The Hilltoppers of Western Kentucky will look to their staple air raid attack behind senior quarterback Austin Reed. Reed has excelled this season, passing for over 2,000 yards in just 6 games, while throwing 19 touchdowns, completing over 72% of his passes, and running for another 3 scores. Where there are great quarterbacks, there are great receivers, and the Hilltoppers wide receiver corps is no exception. Senior Dawood Davis leads the way with nearly 600 receiving yards, good for 11th in the nation. The core is complemented by junior Michael Matheson and sophomore Malachi Cornley. All 3 wide receivers combine for hauling in 62% of passing yards and 65% of passing touchdowns. Lining up in the backfield beside Reed is Kai Robichaud, a steady force at running back who has combined for 440 total yards and a pair of rushing touchdowns. This offense will look to spread the Blue Raiders defense out as they usually line up 4 wide and produce almost 500 yards a game. From the other side of the line of scrimmage, both teams play an aggressive style of defense that wreaks havoc for the opposing offense, as both teams combine for 33 sacks and 27 turnovers. MTSU leads Conference USA in total sacks at 19 and will look to add to that total. Leading the Hilltoppers defense in their effort to shut down the Blue Raiders offense are linebackers Jaquez Evans, who has 32 solo tackles and leads the team with 4.5 sacks, and Derek Smith, who has a pair of sacks and an interception. If the Blue Raiders plan on staying in this game, they will have to protect Chase Cunningham and avoid the turnover bug, as WKU has forced 15 turnovers, leading the conference.
Thanks, Ryan. Always good to get that in-depth look at the other side.
Well, guys, you know what time it is. Dylan, get ready to start the car because I'm throwing you the keys.
Yes, sir. I'm going to rev up my GMC Snowman and start things off with my first key, make Austin stop reading. And guys, despite what your 3rd grade teacher might say, sometimes reading isn't always the answer. Austin Reed, he's the Beethoven of this Western Kentucky offense. He is the conductor. If MTSU can stop him, you're really going to stop this team. Now, we know they've had issues over the past week, especially against guys like Frank Harris, but I think the key is going to be stopping him. Make him sweat like he's in a Saharan desert sauna. For my second key, confidence in Cunningham. Going over to MTSU's leader, Chase Cunningham, he looked a little shaky last week, and I think that has to do with protection. The offensive line has got to protect him and give him time to throw. We know that if he's given time, he is like a surgeon from Grey's Anatomy. He picks apart defenses. That is going to be huge. Give him the opportunity to make those green arrow snipe shots. For my third key, let the hate flow through you. Emperor Palpatine rang out these famous words a long time ago, and I'm no player, but I got to admit, I think this is exactly what MTSU needs to embrace. Take it like a pregame speech from here. Give 125%. This is a game where legends are made, where stories are written, and legacies are set for MTSU. If you don't know the impact of this game, then you don't need to be here. This is the most important game of the year, 100%, and it's for bragging rights and for a tiebreaker in this series.
Dylan, I have 2 words to say to that. Do it.
Yes.
Adam, what you got?
All right, for my first key, I've got keep the WKU offense behind the sticks. Western's third down percentage this year is only 38%. We have to get them into those situations where they haven't had much success, and the way you do that, no free yardage. Don't take penalties. For my second key, I've got sell out on defending the pass. 740 yards rushing, that's just under 150 a game from Western, compared to their 350 a game through the air. We have to sell out on stopping this air attack and make them prove they can beat us on the ground, which they haven't been able to do this year. And finally, I've got get back to forcing turnovers. This defense has been great this season at forcing turnovers. It regressed a little bit last week, and this Western offense is really good at limiting those. Austin Reed only has 4 interceptions, and with how much this team likes to throw the ball around, that's pretty impressive. We've got to jack that number up this weekend.
You could make a very strong argument that MTSU's hidden identity really is in that defense and those turnovers. My first key for the Blue Raiders, flip the page. Every good story has bad pages that you just want to skip over to get to the good part. MTSU, we're ready to get back to the good part, and it's going to be found on homecoming day. Guys, they're coming off of a week where they did not look like themselves, where they really are looking for that identity. For MTSU, flip the page, find out who you are in this game at Floyd Stadium. Second key, run the full race. Derby-themed homecoming, right? So what do you got to do? You can't run 1 leg. You can't run 2 legs. You can't even run 3. You got to run the full thing. In the Kentucky Derby, it's 2 minutes long. This football game could be 2.5 hours long, guys. This is going to be something that MTSU has to provide all 3 sides of the ball. Offense, defense, and special teams. If they can do that, they're going to come away with this win. And finally, get back to the winner's circle. As Little Sweet would say, it's so sweet. So just get back there. You want Western Kentucky smelling the roses from away from the winner's circle. Send them on their way home with that. We'll be right back with more after this on Blue Raider Extra Point.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Welcome back to Blue Raider Extra Point. Noah Brady joined alongside Adam Brown, Dylan Simmons, and today on this special homecoming episode of Blue Raider Extra Point, we have Jonathan Hutton, host from Outkick 360 and 102.5 The Game, locally in Nashville. Jonathan, thank you so much for being here with us today.
It's great to be on the show, great to be back on campus. You guys have a great setup, awesome crew behind the scenes. It's great to be in the Hall of Fame doing this show and not somewhere in the middle of campus by a dumpster, which is where I did the show. So
we talked about it.
Guys.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit off air, but it seems like every time you come back, there's a new building, but no new parking lot to go with it, right?
Which is par for the course, right? Better crowds at home games. That's also what I see. Keep buying the tickets, and hopefully everybody can come out later today to check out a great game.
It should be a good one. We'll get to that one here in just a little bit. Dylan, we're going to start out with you, though, talking about Charlotte on the road against UAB.
Well, what do I have to say about Charlotte other than terrible things? Overall, I just don't trust the 49ers. I think they've fallen off worse than a bungee jumper because they have not managed much at all this season. 1 win over Georgia State. 1 win. They're coming off a bye week in which they were beaten by UTEP, and Chris Reynolds, guys, he can't be like Deebo Samuel and play all 22 positions. He just can't manage that. Dwayne McBride, Jermaine Johnson Jr., they're absolute beasts. We saw how UAB smoked us. That was hard to watch, but I think that's going to be all that they need to beat Charlotte. Give me the Blazers.
Yeah, Dylan, you mentioned the game last week, and they looked great. And they're a 23.5-point favorite at home this week. I don't think that's enough. This is a complete mismatch, and I think UAB covers.
23.5. I didn't know the spread. I do now. Double the spread. This is a bloodbath at Protective Stadium in Birmingham. UAB is going to get after them.
back-to-back bloodbaths at Protective Stadium. I don't know. It's not adding up to me. Guys, Trey Shropshire for senior wide receiver for UAB, he was explosive last week. Part of that 581 yards of total offense, he made up the majority of it on his own. I mean, the guy was just flying all over the place. Part of that dynamic Blazers offense. Charlotte quarterback Chris Reynolds, though, he's back, and they're coming off a bye week. He's fully recovered now, and they showed who they were against Georgia State. I think this is going to be a great game, but I am taking Charlotte by a field goal on the road. Okay. Let's go La Tech on the road against North Texas.
Yeah, the Mean Green are back, and that's right, the Mean Green. But I have to say, they played FAU really darn well. The defense decided to go out of the real estate business and start turning to robbing banks, as in getting turnovers. They picked off N'Kosi Perry twice, looked a lot more complete overall. I think Louisiana Tech, though, looked good against UTEP, played really well, and the biggest difference was that Parker McNeil had a much more complete game. 266, 4 touchdowns, and a donut hole as far as interceptions were concerned. Love what I saw from them overall on defense as well. Forced 3 Gavin Hardison interceptions. To me, it's going to be about which team is more complete. I think it's North Texas, surprisingly enough. I'm picking the Mean Green.
All right, so North Texas is a 6.5-point favorite, but I'm taking the Bulldogs because these two teams in per-game statistics are almost identical, with the Bulldogs having played Clemson and Houston. That's pretty impressive to me that they're still on the same level as North Texas. Give me the Bulldogs on the road.
So the Bulldogs, shout out Kix Brooks, who I'm sending this to after the show ends today. He's a big La Tech fan, went there. But here's the key. They can't stop the run. They give up a ton of points. North Texas, they can run the football well. They don't really throw it all that often. I think this is the highest scoring game of the weekend in conference. And I think it's the first team to 30. First team to 30 wins this game. I'm taking the home team, favored for a reason because they do run the ball extremely well. I think it's North Texas at home.
Well, class, if you'll open up your history books, La Tech all-time in this matchup, 9-2, going all the way back to 2005. But both those Bulldog losses, oddly enough, came at home for them. Luckily for them, they are in North Texas this week, so I'm taking the Bulldogs by 10. I say La Tech stays undefeated in conference play. Let's go Rice against Florida Atlantic.
Yeah, I know what people may want me to say about Rice, but I gotta be honest, guys, they're still bland. And they forced 4 turnovers against UAB, and they only won by 4 points. The offense was as bland as Burger King chicken nuggets with just 104 yards passing and barely 60 rushing. Any other day, and they would have lost this game. FAU is a team that still has a lot to sort out, sure, but they got the gunslinger N'Kosi Perry, who had 295 yards, did throw 2 picks, but I think it comes down to him playing more like Aaron Rodgers and less like Baker Mayfield. That's what we need to see out of him. I think he's going to do just that, and I think it's going to be a big turnaround. Give me the Owls.
FAU is a 4-point favorite at home, and I almost thought about going back-to-back upsets here just because I think Rice is really starting to turn a corner. But you guys know I can't pick against my Owls offense that I love so much, so give me FAU.
So does FAU allow more than 22 points in this game?
No.
Can Rice get there?
No.
Because that's where this game hinges for me. Rice is 4-1 against the spread. You said they're the underdog by
FAU
what?
is a 4-point favorite at home.
Yeah, I'm taking Rice in this. I don't want to. I'm not a big fan of naming colleges after a food, but I do see the results of what they've done. And Florida Atlantic, they're winless whenever they give up more than 22. They're 0-10 over the last couple of seasons.
Well, you kind of hinted towards it. It's the battle of the Owls, and for me, guys, it's going to come down to who has the jack of owl trades in this one. FAU allowing nearly 30 points per game and nearly 250 yards through that air raid, and Rice has shown they have a dynamic offense, and they've got some firepower when they tap into it. They are 3-2, and I think they're moving out to 4-2, and as if it's not clear, let me say it again. I'm picking the not-so-bland Rice squad. They're the Owls of CUSA.
Forever bland.
All right, let's bring it home. Western Kentucky at Middle
Here we go.
for homecoming week.
Well, guys, as the Band Europe once said, it's the final countdown. This is the game we have all been waiting for, the 100 Miles of Hate series. Every Blue Raider fan has had this date circled on their calendar since the very beginning of the year. We all know the meaning, the stakes that are protected by this game. There's going to be more tension in Johnny Red Floyd Stadium than any Shakespeare work. It's going to be like Hamlet out there. To me, this comes down, though, to which team plays with more heart on the inside. Both are on the brink in CUSA. And by the way, guys, this is an all-time series that is tied at 35, 35, and 1. So this is about control of the series in an ever-changing CUSA. Now, I know Western Kentucky are the Hilltoppers, and I'm a bit of a mountain climber myself, and I think I found the perfect mountain for them to climb.
Here we go.
Yes, I've got just the solution for you here in Western Kentucky. I want you to see this all the way from Bowling Green. Visit Mount L. Mount L, elevation butt whooping. That's what's gonna happen here today on Johnny Red Floyd Stadium. I cannot wait to see you guys make it to the top. Give me MTSU 35-24.
No, he didn't have a bag. We checked his pockets, and somehow he still manages to slip something in here.
We get him a new clipboard.
Yeah.
And what does he do? Takes an advantage.
Yes.
Guys, I'll go ahead and get the bad news out of the way. I'm taking Western, but I'm going to tell you why. and it's
Make
gonna
this
you feel
quick.
better.
Make it quick.
I'll try. But 8-point favorite. What does Vegas know that we don't? Vegas is always right. What do they know? And here's the thing. Last time, MTSU was kind of on the downslope. I asked for a response, and they gave it to me. So I'm taking Western in the spirit of asking for a response. MTSU, please win this game.
You're picking that with your head, right? I'm going with my heart. My heart is full of hate for Western Kentucky and Bowling Green.
And his heart is in the right place.
The pass rush is going to get after Reed, their quarterback. The Blue Raiders do that extremely well. They average over 3 sacks per game, #1 in the conference. Western starting a new left tackle most likely. They're moving their right tackle over, and then they're going to add other pieces up front. I think Middle can change the game there, and it's which defense can force a turnover and flip the field. Middle's got to protect the football. If they do that, I think the defense will give them a couple extra possessions.
They have a recipe for disaster in Western Kentucky, and what does MTSU have to do? Stir the pot. And on homecoming week, it's a Derby-themed homecoming. Now, guys, you can't give me the right answer for why MTSU is having a Kentucky Derby-themed homecoming, especially when Western is coming to town. But I will say, they are going to end up in the winner's circle this week. And the Hilltoppers, they're going to be smelling the roses the whole bus ride home. And I'm all over it. That defense that we talked about earlier in the show, guys, that MTSU defense is stout, and they're going to get back to their true form. It's going to go one of two ways. Either MTSU defense keeps Western out of this game, or it's a shootout and MTSU's offense shows up, steps up to the plate, and Chase Cunningham is throwing darts just like he did against Miami. Don't forget it, Simmons.
Oh, gosh.
We've got Jonathan Hutton on the show to close it out with us one more time. We'll be back on Blue Raider Extra Point.
Be sure to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter for all your Blue Raider coverage and more.
That's going to do it for us this morning, but we can't let you go without talking to our guest, Hutton. It was great to have you on the show. Welcome home for homecoming.
It's great to be back. Homecoming's the perfect time to do it. Seeing familiar faces, of course, with all things in front of the camera, behind the camera here on campus. Keep up the great work with everything, and let's go get a win today.
Do you have a favorite sports memory from your time here?
Yeah, so the Motor City Bowl for the bowl game, they didn't win against Central Michigan. That was a great experience, though. And then we also had some road rallies in the SEC, Georgia, Alabama, Florida. We hung with them the night before, right? The fan base. They hated us the day of, and the team played okay for about a quarter, and then it was a long trip home.
Well, that's sometimes that's all you need is
Sometimes
just
that
a good
happens,
quarter
yeah.
play, and that's fine, right?
That's right.
Unfortunately, guys, that is all the time that we have. But thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Blue Raider Extra Point.
If you missed this or any episode, you can check it out on MiddleTennesseeNews.net and hit the sports tab.
Be sure to follow us at MTN Sports on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Dude, the clipboard, like
Clipboard,
the L,
yes.
Mount L, is that what you said?
Yes, Mount L. That's exactly where they're going.
You're running out of ways to smuggle stuff in here.
I'll keep finding a way.
What else have you smuggled in besides
I've done
rice?
rice. I have done in
the
past,
donuts.
The donuts. Let's see.
He hand drew a map.
The black truck? Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzzed and overshared again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
So yeah, I know, that's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm gonna get back with Christina?
No.
Oh.
No.
Once there was a boy who did the same thing again and again. One day, he was told he had autism. He got help and slowly learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.